December 2024 should have been just another quiet podcast appearance, another routine interview in the endless cycle of reality TV commentary, but instead it became the moment a daughter calmly cracked open a story that had been building for more than 2 decades. When Meri Brown sat down and casually said, "Before the show, we were very poor," it didn't sound explosive. There were no dramatic pauses, no raised voices, no music swelling in the background, just a simple sentence. But sometimes the quietest admissions hit the hardest. Because for years, viewers of Sister Wives were sold an image of a struggling but functional plural family. Unconventional, yes, but managing, surviving, making it work. What Maddie described painted something very different. 15 children, 4 wives, 1 father, and a financial foundation that, according to her, was far shakier than anyone realized. At the center of that family stood Kody Brown. Charismatic, confident, always talking about vision, leadership, big ideas. A man who seemed allergic to the word average. He wasn't just trying to provide. He was trying to win, to hit something big, to outsmart the system. Maddie didn't describe a man who refused to work. In fact, she acknowledged he made decent money selling signs. Around $4,000 a month at one point, according to past public filings. On paper that might sound stable. But stability is relative when you're supporting 4 households and a small army of children. The math starts to stretch. Groceries multiply. Rent multiplies. Medical bills multiply. And if there isn't a system, if there isn't discipline, if there isn't long-term planning, the pressure compounds quietly until something cracks. According to Maddie, the issue wasn't simply income. It was philosophy. "My dad always chose the get-rich-quick scheme. Almost always. 3 words. Get rich quick. That feel harmless until you look at them through the lens of 20 years of consequences." She described a pattern. There was always something. Always a new opportunity. A new angle. A new investment that promised to change everything. It wasn't that sign sales weren't enough. It was that they weren't exciting enough. They weren't transformative enough. And if you're constantly looking for the leap instead of building the ladder, you can end up hovering in place for years without realizing it. Imagine being a child in that environment. You don't understand balance sheets or tax strategy. You understand tension. You understand when the adults whisper about money at night. You understand when a tax return arrives and instead of relief, there's a sudden rush to spend. Maddie revealed that whenever those tax refunds came in, they were spent immediately. No emergency fund. No cushion. No slow, careful planning. Just movement. Immediate movement. For some families, a tax return is a reset button. For others, it becomes a spark. And sparks, in the wrong environment, can burn fast. What makes this revelation more unsettling is how normalized it felt inside the household. When Maddie later married and tried explaining some of her father's financial ideas to her husband, she described his reaction as disbelief. That quiet, stunned kind of disbelief where someone says, "No, that's not how money works." It's in that contrast between what she grew up hearing and what she later learned, that the full weight of the pattern starts to show. Because generational habits don't feel reckless when you're inside them. They feel normal, logical, even visionary. And yet, before the television cameras arrived, before fame softened the edges and TLC paychecks began rolling in, the Browns were navigating that philosophy with 15 children depending on it. Poverty isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just constant instability. Maddie's words suggested that the family's financial stress didn't begin with fame. It predated it. The show didn't create the cracks. It may have simply exposed them. When Janelle Brown later revealed in season 20 that money had been withdrawn from family accounts in recent years without clear explanations, it echoed Maddie's earlier description of unilateral decisions. Janelle, who had long been portrayed as the practical, numbers-focused wife, admitted there were moments she didn't know where funds were going. That detail lands differently when paired with the earlier history, because it suggests continuity, a pattern that didn't disappear when the cameras showed up. A pattern that may have simply scaled with the income. But before the show, before the millions in contracts and spin-offs and national attention, there were very real consequences to instability. Maddie shared that health insurance coverage for the children was inconsistent during certain periods. There were gaps when employment shifted, gaps when coverage lapsed. And during one of those gaps, her appendix ruptured. Emergency surgery. A bill that followed her mother for years. In a family that large, medical emergencies aren't rare possibilities. They're statistical inevitabilities. And when insurance becomes optional because resources are directed elsewhere, the stakes become painfully clear. It's one thing to gamble on business. It's another when that gamble intersects with healthcare. Maddie didn't frame it with rage. She didn't dramatize it herself. But the implication hangs heavy. Priorities matter. Where money flows tells a story. If there's always another investment, another scheme, another opportunity promising future wealth, the present can quietly suffer. And here's where the suspense tightens. Because when Sister Wives premiered in 2010, it was positioned as a breakthrough moment. A plural family stepping into the light. A chance to show America their version of unity. TLC paychecks reportedly increased over time. Exposure brought speaking engagements, brand deals, business ventures. On the surface, the financial chaos should have stabilized. More income should mean more security. But public records show that in 2015, Kody and Meri Brown filed for bankruptcy. The same year legal marriages shifted. The same year the infamous catfishing scandal dominated headlines. Even with television money flowing, the old patterns appeared to remain. That's the haunting part of Maddie's admission. Almost always suggests consistency. A philosophy so deeply rooted that new income didn't necessarily equal new discipline. And when you zoom out, the narrative becomes larger than just numbers. It becomes about control. About who makes the decisions. About whether collaboration turns into unilateral action over time. By late 2024, as multiple marriages had dissolved, with Christine Brown remarried and speaking more openly, and estrangements widening, the question shifted from emotional fractures to financial ones. If the family had filmed for nearly 2 decades, if contracts had reportedly grown into the tens of thousands per episode for some members, if property had been bought and sold, then where did the stability go? How did a family go from very poor, before fame, to still facing public financial scrutiny after years of exposure? And perhaps more importantly, what did the children learn from watching it unfold? Maddie and her husband relocated to North Carolina years ago, putting significant distance between themselves and the family epicenter. Mykelti Brown Padron would later do the same, moving with Tony Padron to Charlotte. 2 daughters, same state, thousands of miles away. It doesn't necessarily prove motive, but it suggests something. Sometimes distance isn't just geographic. By the time the cameras had been rolling for nearly a decade, the Brown family wasn't just surviving anymore. They were a brand. Sister Wives had transformed them from a quiet, financially strained plural family into national figures. There were book deals, speaking engagements, business ventures, and reports that episode payments had significantly increased over time. On the outside, it looked like the breakthrough they had always needed. The struggle years were supposed to be over. The very poor chapter Maddie described should have closed the moment steady television income arrived. But what if the money didn't fix the problem? What if it simply magnified it? Because more income doesn't automatically mean more stability. It only amplifies whatever habits already exist. And this is where Janelle Brown's season 20 confession changes everything. For years, Janelle was portrayed as the logical one, the numbers person, the wife who understood budgets and taxes and long-term planning. If anyone in the family represented financial grounding, it was her. So when she admitted on camera that in the last several years, Kody Brown had been withdrawing funds from family accounts and she didn't know what they were for, it didn't feel like casual commentary. It felt like a rupture. Read that again carefully. The woman who managed the books didn't know where money was going. That detail lands differently when you remember Maddie's words about almost always chasing schemes. Because it suggests continuity. Not isolated mistakes, but a mindset that persisted even after fame brought resources. In the early seasons, the Browns emphasized collaboration. They presented themselves as 4 wives and 1 husband navigating shared finances together. Big decisions were supposedly discussed. Priorities were debated. But somewhere along the way, according to Janelle, that structure shifted. Gradually, quietly, not in one explosive moment but piece by piece. Decision by decision. Withdrawal by withdrawal. And gradual shifts are the hardest to detect. They don't feel like power grabs in real time. They feel like small concessions. Like, I'll handle it. Like, trust me. Like, I've got this. Until one day you're staring at an account balance and realizing you don't recognize the numbers anymore. The most unsettling part isn't even the withdrawals themselves. It's the lack of transparency. Because financial secrecy inside a marriage, especially a plural one with shared obligations, creates cracks that spread fast. And once trust erodes around money, everything else follows. By this point, multiple properties had been purchased and sold. The infamous move to Flagstaff had already strained relationships. Coyote Pass, once framed as the family's shared dream land, became symbolic of stalled plans and unfulfilled promises. Houses weren't built. Lots weren't developed. And while some wives struggled in rentals or even RV living, one household appeared to expand in comfort. Which brings us to Robyn Brown. In September 2024, Robyn publicly claimed she had learned to budget extremely well after her previous divorce. She suggested she and the other wives simply had different priorities when it came to money. On the surface, it sounded harmless, even self-aware. But in context, the comment felt sharper. Because while she spoke about budgeting discipline, she was living in the most expensive home among the wives. A home reportedly purchased with funds that had once been part of a shared financial ecosystem. And that's where optics become impossible to ignore. While Janelle described funds disappearing without clarity, while Christine had spoken about struggling to get certain expenses prioritized, Robyn's household appeared consistently insulated. Bigger home, more stability, fewer visible sacrifices. No one openly labeled it favoritism in those exact terms. But viewers noticed. The pattern of where attention flowed often mirrored where money flowed. And in a family built on the concept of equal partnership, perceived imbalance becomes gasoline. Meanwhile, something else was happening quietly in the background. The children were growing up. And children raised in instability don't just inherit trauma. They inherit perspective. Mykelti Brown Padron, once one of Kody and Robyn's most vocal defenders, began shifting her tone publicly. After years of playing mediator, after inviting Robyn into intimate family milestones, after defending her father when siblings distanced themselves, something changed. By late 2024, Mykelti and her husband Tony Padron were dissecting episodes of Sister Wives on Patreon with a level of candor that surprised longtime fans. They didn't just recap scenes. They questioned them. When financial claims were made on the show, they analyzed them. When narratives felt inconsistent, they said so. They laughed at the idea of adding another wife, not because of moral outrage, but because of math. How do you add another adult into a financial structure that already appears strained? The tone wasn't explosive. It was analytical. And sometimes calm analysis cuts deeper than anger. What made this shift more dramatic was timing. In early 2024, tragedy struck the family with the loss of Garrison Brown. Details surrounding family dynamics during that period were kept private out of respect, but many observers noted that certain relationships fractured beyond repair. Grief often acts as a spotlight. It exposes what was already fragile. By mid-2024, Mykelti and Tony announced they were relocating to North Carolina, roughly 2,000 miles away from the family's base. Officially, it was for Tony's chess opportunities. Charlotte is often cited as a hub for competitive chess. But when Maddie and her husband were already living in the same state, when both daughters had chosen the same geographic distance from the chaos, it started to look less like coincidence and more like pattern. Distance can be protection. Because by this stage, financial stress wasn't theoretical. It had legal implications. After divorcing Kody, Christine Brown eventually remarried David Woolley. And once she was remarried and reportedly stable, she filed legal action related to paternity and child support. Reports circulated suggesting significant financial claims were involved, though exact figures were not officially confirmed in detail. What mattered wasn't the number. What mattered was the message. Accountability. The lawsuit reframed the financial conversation. It wasn't just about past instability anymore. It was about present obligation. Courts don't operate on optimism. They operate on arithmetic. You either owe or you don't. And here's where the tension spikes. In late 2024, reports emerged that Kody and Robyn sold their Flagstaff home and purchased a new property valued at approximately $2 million. Again, the optics were impossible to ignore. A multi-million-dollar home purchase while estrangements deepened and legal financial questions hovered overhead. Doesn't automatically mean wrongdoing. It doesn't automatically prove mismanagement. But it intensifies the central question. Where is the money coming from and where is it going? Especially when multiple adult children have described instability growing up. Especially when one wife says she didn't know where withdrawals were headed. Especially when lawsuits enter the picture. And perhaps the most haunting aspect of all is this. None of these revelations came from tabloids. They came from within the family. From daughters. From wives. From on-camera admissions. By the time the third marriage collapsed, the illusion of unity was already hanging by a thread. What once looked like a bold social experiment unfolding under studio lights now resembled something far more fragile. A system straining under years of unresolved tension. And when money is involved, tension doesn't just strain relationships. It exposes them. Because financial control is rarely loud in the beginning. It doesn't start with dramatic ultimatums. It begins with small shifts. Who signs the paperwork, who handles the accounts, who decides which bills get priority. Over time, those small shifts become patterns. And patterns become power. When Janelle Brown described feeling increasingly excluded from financial decision-making, it reframed years of subtle discomfort. This wasn't just about miscommunication. It was about autonomy. About whether the family's financial structure still resembled a partnership, or something else entirely. In the early years, Janelle worked outside the home. She often took on the practical burden of keeping things afloat. She balanced checkbooks, managed expenses, and provided steady employment income while the plural family adjusted to public scrutiny. For a long time, she appeared content in that role. It fit her personality. Pragmatic, measured, less emotionally reactive than others. But pragmatism has limits when transparency fades. When she revealed that funds were withdrawn without her understanding why, it wasn't delivered as explosive accusation. It was delivered almost clinically, which somehow made it more unsettling. Because calmness suggests resignation, and resignation suggests a long process of erosion. Meanwhile, Christine Brown was undergoing her own transformation. For years, Christine had been the emotional heart of the family. Warm, expressive, often visibly hurt but still loyal to the plural structure. Her eventual decision to leave wasn't framed around money at first. It was framed around intimacy, partnership, and respect. But when she later pursued legal clarity regarding child support after marrying David Woolley, it became clear that finances were part of the deeper fracture. Because emotional neglect and financial imbalance often coexist. If one partner feels unseen emotionally, they may also begin questioning whether they've been seen financially. The lawsuit wasn't loud revenge. It was paperwork. Structured, measured, and paperwork has a way of cutting through narrative spin. It doesn't care about charisma or camera angles. Cares about documented obligations. And while these legal and emotional shifts unfolded, something else was happening that may have been even more consequential. The children were publicly speaking. Meri Brown had already broken the silence about poverty before fame. But she didn't stop there. Her discussions about tax returns being spent immediately, about the instability of insurance coverage, about learning a completely different financial philosophy after marriage. All of it formed a contrast narrative. She wasn't screaming at her father. She wasn't attacking him outright. But she was redefining her upbringing in a way that stripped away nostalgia. When adult children begin reframing their childhood in public, it changes everything. Because viewers don't just see conflict between spouses anymore. They see generational consequence. And then there was Mykelti Brown Padron. For years, Mykelti had positioned herself as the bridge. She defended her father when siblings distanced themselves. She defended Robyn Brown when criticism mounted. She invited Robyn into deeply personal milestones, including her childbirth experience. Loyalty seemed unshakable, until it wasn't. After the family tragedy in early 2024, dynamics reportedly shifted in ways that weren't fully explained publicly. Mykelti became noticeably more measured in her commentary. On Patreon recaps with her husband Tony Padron, she began dissecting episodes with analytical distance rather than emotional defense. When financial claims were made on screen, she questioned them. When narratives felt inconsistent, she pointed it out. When discussions arose about potentially expanding the family again, she laughed. Not dismissively, but incredulously. Because math doesn't bend for sentiment. That shift from defender to observer was significant. It suggested something internal had changed. And when internal loyalty shifts, the external structure rarely survives intact. Meanwhile, the optics of the $2 million home purchase loomed larger. Reports indicated that Kody and Robyn had sold their previous Flagstaff property and moved into a significantly more expensive home. The timing, amid estrangements and legal questions, fueled speculation. Was it strategic? Was it investment? Was it a symbol of success? Or was it simply another high-stakes move in a long history of financial boldness? From a distance it looked like escalation. Because if there's one consistent thread in Maddie's description of her father's mindset, it's this: bigger. Always bigger. Bigger ideas. Bigger opportunities. Bigger risk. The problem with escalation is that it demands results. And if results don't materialize quickly, pressure intensifies. Public scrutiny was already high. Social media dissected every episode of Sister Wives in real time. Viewers weren't just watching family drama anymore. They were analyzing property records, business filings, and court documents. Fame had turned the Browns into a case study. And what makes Part 3 especially heavy isn't just financial suspicion. It's isolation. By early 2025, reports suggested Kody was estranged from the majority of his children. Estrangement doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, conversation by conversation, disappointment by disappointment. Financial tension may not have been the sole cause, but when children grow up hearing about instability and later witness large property purchases, questions form. Questions like, was the instability unavoidable, or was it choice? The contrast between generations became sharper. Maddie and her husband were building a farm business with Janelle. Tangible work, tangible product, tangible income. No promises of overnight wealth. Just soil, labor, and sales. Mykelti diversified her income through online platforms and brand ventures. Christine found new stability after remarriage. Meri focused on her independent business pursuits. It looked less like a broken family and more like separate systems forming outside the original one. And perhaps that's the quietest but most dramatic shift of all. Because empires don't usually collapse in one explosive event. They fragment, slowly, piece by piece, until what once stood as a single unit becomes scattered individuals building independent foundations. By the end of Part 3, the question isn't simply, where did the money go? It's, who still believes in the original vision? Because if the patriarch continues escalating while the rest of the family decentralizes, the power structure shifts permanently. By early 2025, the empire that once introduced itself to America as an unbreakable plural family no longer looked like an empire at all. It looked like a single household standing in a $2 million property, while the rest of the original structure had scattered in every direction. And the silence between those households was louder than any on-camera argument ever filmed for Sister Wives. Because legacy isn't measured in square footage. It's measured in what remains when the cameras turn off. For years, Kody Brown positioned himself as the visionary, the leader, the man willing to stand against societal norms to build something extraordinary. And in the early seasons, that confidence read as conviction. But conviction without stability can slowly morph into something else. Isolation. By the time 3 marriages had dissolved, with Kody Brown remarrying David Woolley, Janelle Brown separating and focusing on her independence, and Meri Brown stepping away emotionally and legally, the family no longer revolved around a shared dream. It revolved around aftermath. And the most haunting question wasn't about who left. It was about who stayed, and at what cost. Robyn Brown remained legally married to Kody. Publicly, she often expressed heartbreak over the family's fragmentation. She insisted she wanted unity. She spoke about grief, about confusion, about wishing things had turned out differently. But intention and outcome rarely align cleanly. And whether fair or not, perception hardened among viewers that her household had been prioritized, emotionally and financially, during the later years. That perception matters. Because in plural marriage, equality is currency. Once one wife appears elevated above the others, whether through time, resources, or property, the balance shifts. And when balance shifts, resentment grows roots. But beyond perception there's arithmetic. Kody's legal move to pursue formal child support accountability reframed everything. It wasn't emotional commentary. It was documentation. And documentation demands answers. It forces clarity in places where narrative once smoothed things over. If obligations exist, they must be fulfilled. If finances were shared, records exist. If income increased through nearly 20 seasons of television, then numbers can be traced. And numbers don't respond to charisma. The $2 million house became symbolic, not because purchasing property is inherently wrong, but because of timing, because of context. Because when estrangement headlines and financial questions circulate simultaneously, optics amplify scrutiny. Was it an investment strategy? A consolidation of assets? A fresh start? Or another high-stakes move built on optimism? Optimism has always been central to Kody's persona. The belief that something bigger is coming. That the next move will fix the last one. That expansion solves contraction. But part 4 isn't about optimism. It's about consequence. Because while the patriarch remained in one house, the next generation was building something entirely different. Meri Brown Brush wasn't chasing overnight wealth. She was planting crops, working alongside her mother, selling tangible goods. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't headline-grabbing. But it was stable. And stability is a powerful rebuttal to chaos. Mykelti Brown Padron wasn't defending every decision anymore. She was analyzing them, building diversified income streams, leveraging online platforms, making strategic geographic moves with Tony Padron that suggested long-term planning rather than emotional reaction. 2 daughters, same state, thousands of miles from the epicenter. That's not coincidence. That's philosophy in action. And perhaps that's the true climax of this story. Not the bankruptcy filings. Not the withdrawals. Not even the lawsuits. The climax is generational rejection. Children who grew up watching tax returns vanish instantly now talk about saving. Children who experienced insurance gaps now prioritize coverage. Children who witnessed high-risk optimism now choose calculated risk. That's legacy too. But it's inverted. Because sometimes the most powerful inheritance isn't what you're given. It's what you decide never to repeat. By 2025, reports suggested Kody was estranged from the majority of his children. Estrangement is complex. It rarely has a single cause. Emotional dynamics